Welcome to the McAllister Report. We join John McAllister, top football evaluator, as he shares wisdom and interviews coaches and athletes from around the country. Enjoy today's podcast.
Hello, I'm John McAllister, and today on the John McAllister Report, we're going to go into Coach's Corner and talk with an old friend of mine. We grew up in the same small town of Upper Sandusky. We are been friends forever, and in fact, I married a girl that he graduated with at Upper Sandusky. So I've known Jerry Snodgrass for many, many years. We always keep in touch. We bump into each other. We coached at the same school in Ridgedale for a year or two together, football and basketball, and we just kind of followed each other. Jerry Snodgrass worked his way up. He started as a basketball coach, assistant coach, moved up to varsity coach, head coach, got into administration, was the athletics director at Findlay High School, the OHSAA or district boards. Then he was eventually on the OHSAA Executive of the Board. And then he was also finally the top position as OHSAA Executive Director. And things didn't work out there for him. End of that conversation. But now Jerry's doing consulting work. He teaches a class at Ohio University. And he just keeps going. Motor keeps going. And I think the biggest reason is because he's so into helping people get better, helping administrators get better, helping coaches get better, and helping young people get better. That makes him very unique among Ohio high schools and sports. So, great guy. I'm going to talk to him about a lot of different things, and excited to have him on again. Okay, like I said earlier in my intro, my guest today is Jerry Snodgrass. I'm even wearing an Upper Sandusky Rams shirt because we're both grew up Upper Sandusky Rams, and we're once a Ram, always a Ram. Bit difference in age, but I married a girl out of his class, so I still feel like we're all bonded here together. Mr. Snodgrass, how are you today?
I'm doing great, and I need to correct you on that just a little bit. You said we grew up together. No, I've said this a million times. You had a lot to do with growing me up. I was the one that you invited as an 8th grader. I still got to go down to the athletic courts to play basketball with the big guys. As long as I passed, as long as I rebounded, and as long as I didn't make a mistake or take a shot I shouldn't have, I got to play, and that had a lot to do. You used to take me to ball games, John. And I really appreciate that growing up. So, and by the way, I thought, with your wife, I thought we had our 25th class reunion this weekend. And lo and behold, I realized it wasn't our 25th. It's our 50th. So we had that this weekend.
When you said that, I'm kind of wondering real fast, man, you're losing it in your mind now a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerry, you have so much energy and you have so much enthusiasm, and you turned just 68 years old. I like to think at 75, I have energy. I think I do, not quite as much as I used to. But I want to spend a lot of time today talking about some area of leadership. Okay, some area of leadership. And I'd like to start off with, yes, you coached Ben Roethlisberger in high school. You know Ben Roethlisberger and retired Ben Roethlisberger. But he, in his own way, was a leader. Okay. Tell me a Ben Roethlisberger story.
Well, first of all, he's a great kid, and as well as I do, we still refer to our players as kids. And I wish every yeah. I wish every coach had the opportunity to follow somebody, into stardom like that, into fame and fortune. You see the ups and downs, but one of my favorite things when he was playing at Findlay High School, and again, he played basketball for me, and basketball was his favorite sport. I'm just here to tell you, and he also saw the writing on the wall. But when we played very few sophomores back in the day. I don't like to use that term, but very few sophomores at Findlay got to play. And we would bring every one of our players in, and, whether we were cutting them or not, we had a lot of kids try out back then. We brought them all in. And I'm telling you that not one single player, if they were a 2-year letter winner, even knew that they were going to make the team. It was a very nervous time when we brought them into the office. So it's Ben Roethlisberger's time. Comes in as a sophomore. So we're going through cuts. It's his turn to come in, and we used to call it the chair. There was a chair in our office that's famous that the player would always sit in when we would talk to them, tell them whether they're going to make it or not. So Ben, very personable, starts telling us as a sophomore how he's going to break the school scoring record, how he's going to do all these other things, and we had to stop him. Ben, we haven't even told you if you're going to make the varsity team or not yet. And you're telling us all these things that you're going to do. That identified to me his goals. But secondly, as important as anything, summer league game, when summer tournaments just started, or summer camps, we're playing at the University of Findlay. And he's going to be a sophomore. And he takes the ball out of bounds on the side after the halftime. So for the second half. Right. Now, mind you, it's a little more lax, but we were serious on trying to win games in the summer when you played team games. Ben had the official so mixed up on which end we were going to in that half that the official didn't even realize whose ball it was. It wasn't even our ball. So he just had this knack. I don't call it cheating. I just think it was his, I don't know what you want to call it, but he just had a way of control, which I extend to leadership.
Well, that's amazing. Now, one of my Ben Roethlisberger stories was he gave me a little hassle because I rated him 3rd or 4th in Ohio going into his senior year. And he's, that's all you rated me. I said, you haven't even played quarterback.
Yeah,
you were a junior, you didn't play quarterback. but he's always amazing. And I think that I listened to his podcast.
Yeah, footballing.
Yeah, that's what it is. And anyway, now let's talk about motivation. Let's talk about drive. And let me give you a simple question. What drives you? You worked your way up. You were a assistant basketball coach, head coach, AD, and I said this in the intro, but you worked yourself up all the way to the executive director of the OHSAA. And we'll leave it at that, but you were there. And what drives you, Jerry Snodgrass?
Well, first of all, I will tell you this, and I never batted an eye about this, but I got into education for one simple reason. I wanted to coach. I really didn't know what else to do, but wanted to coach. But I quickly realized how much coaching and teaching are so intertwined, and I loved teaching. So, making a difference in a kid's life or someone's life, I just think has always been because people made a difference for me. And John, you're one of those people. But I want to extend that, to other people. But here's the thing that I think you probably know. I've spoken to many, many leadership conferences in actually high school athletic leagues, as well as I have an upcoming meeting, an address with all of the faculty of the entire Putnam County. So all the schools in Putnam County, I have that coming up. And it's all on leadership. But what drives me is I talk about impactful moments in our lives. And when we stop and think about moments in our life, John, you had a very impactful moment. You lost your wife. I lost my son. You talk about impactful. Yeah. life changed, as you well know. When I was in high school, you may recall this, and I've said it before. Yes, I was struck by lightning. I was struck by lightning. Back of Mrs. Hall's house, John Hall's house. I stopped and saw her here recently, but anyhow, struck by lightning. And you know, I was a freshman in high school. Impactful moment, yeah. They made jokes about it after I healed, went back to school, and all that other stuff. You called me Flash until they saw me on the basketball court. You know, very impactful moments. My point with that is real simple. It took me a while, but I realized I am lucky. I'm lucky to be alive. And so many things in my family, from, you know, coming from a split family, impactful moments. And the key is, what do we do with them? And I guess I've lived since, you know, Bobby Keese, my brother-in-law, was killed, you know, at a very, very young age. So I've had these impactful moments, and I start to think to myself all the time, what do you do with it? Do you sulk about it? Do you pout? Do you like go into a shell? I'll tell you, I did for a while on some things. But wait a minute here. We all have them. We all have impactful moments, and I want to make a difference in someone's life and do something, even if it's not in their memory, it's in response to them. I was given the chance to live and do something. Let me do something about it. And that's what drives me every single day. I have a watch that I wear all the time when I'm speaking. And most of the time I look at, it quit about 3 years ago. And every time I look at it, which we do out of habit, I just tell myself all the time that, you know, oh, it's time to make a difference. And that's what really, really inspires me and keeps me going.
Two things. One, we've traveled much the same race. I mean, we're in different lanes, but we've been racing the same way, doing the same race. And I will tell you, not to embarrass you, but you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth, Jerry Snodgrass.
Right.
I mean, I know what I was like. And we have something in common there too. And so when you take that and you've risen and keep driving, I think that's huge. It's huge as our ages now. And the other thing is, for a long time, I always said, why not me? You know, right. Why not me? And why not me? Right. And why can't I do that? And, you know, a head football coach, I signed a contract at 24 years old. I was a little, probably too young, but I did. I've been coached in the college level for 1 year, and I've had this silly football scouting evaluation service. But always say, why not me? And right. I think kids should be the same way. Now, take your experience. And I remember when you played Little League Baseball, you were 6'10", and everybody was 4'10". You were that tall. And I remember that. You never hit the ball very well, but you look good. Anyway, being funny here, but going back, what can you tell kids now? What can you tell, I don't care what any age group, but when they start listening, what's your message to not only athletes maybe, but to students?
You know, I always tell them, I mean, probably number one, which I do in all my leadership conferences. It's amazing to me the number of kids that will come to a leadership conference and they somewhat sit in a shell. You know, sometimes they're selected because they're good kids.
Right.
You know, some are selected because they're team captains, but not necessarily the best leaders. But my message number one is the reason that we don't take the step and take risks. I'm a risk taker, big time. I could go through things that I was told at the OHSAA, we don't do that because we would risk something. You know, as long as I didn't risk the place going, you know, broke or something. I mean, we assess those risks. We fear failure. Not everybody, but most people fear failure. And if we can get over that failure, the fear of that, I think kids can accomplish a lot more. Don't fear speaking in front of people. John, when I was in high school, I still owe Mrs. Kinley an apology. I skipped school on the day I had to give a book report in front of the class because I couldn't talk in front of the class. I couldn't. People find that hard to believe today. But I soon realized in all the things I do, most people, they don't want to be you. boy, thank goodness he's talking in front of those people and not me. So, I think if we get over that fear of failure, we can easily become better leaders.
Okay, what about young coaches? What about young coaches? How do they? I think leaders are born, by the way. Now you can develop some, but majority of leaders are born, and then you refine them and
Right.
then develop them. But there's got to be that. It's got to be hidden in you someplace, and then eventually come out. But what do you tell young coaches then? Let's just go coaches.
Yep. It's interesting you say that, because I think you're right. I do think leaders are born. I think it's our job. When I say our job, those that are in positions to make a difference, to pull that out of them. And, they may not know it, but to pull those leadership skills out for young coaches. And I see this kind of tailing off a lot, is get yourself involved in everything. And I know fans a lot of times don't realize what the commitment is for a coach, but I mean everything. That means go stand on the sideline of a youth game. See what makes kids tick. See what upsets them. See what doesn't work. I remember the days as a young coach, back in the day, but back when, the state basketball tournament was, at St. John Arena, and there weren't the motels and hotels in Columbus like they are today. And I remember with a couple friends at night, going down to the hotel downtown, I can't remember which one it was, where Dick Cordacrax, all these guys, Don Henderson, all these people from around the state that were the vets, they were the ones and hanging outside their door. And because they were all in there holding court. And at the time I was afraid they'd see me. What are you doing here? Oh, they'd see you. Get in here. And I learned more from just absorbing that kind of stuff. And was it a clinic? No. Most clinics, to me, I'm not sure how much they do. Guy talking has 6'11" and 7'20" players that I never had, So, but just seeing what people tick. And I think that's what makes a coach, a young coach. I think that's what really gets them going.
I think so. But Jerry, that leadership with young coaches has changed somewhat. And it's not like the old days.
No.
And I think I'm sliding here because I think a lot of it is who you marry. And I think sometimes, you've got to be a coach's wife.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we're getting away from that instead of sitting around for 15 or 20 minutes after practice and just going over things. I got to get home because you got supper and your son has a soccer match. Well, I think you go to as many sports as you can but I still think in the mindset of young coaches, I don't think it's there like when you were young. And it's a sign of the times, I guess. At all levels, I think that college is the same way.
Oh, I do.
College coaches coming out, the majority of them don't want to spend the time. It's
Right.
not like it, and it's tough. But leadership is so huge, I think. And you got it as a coach, I think you have to be able to recognize who they are. When I went to Lakota, I'd won like 3 games in 3 years or something like that. We had a really good senior class, but we won and won a lot of games, and it was unheard of. But and the president of the VOAG was a tight end. The president of the student council was a linebacker. I mean, all these leaders, and they just look to the kids when they would say something. And it's so hard. The next year, I didn't have them, and we didn't have a very good season. But leadership, and if you're not a leader, then go along with them and follow them.
Well, John, it's an interesting statement that you just made there. I know a lot of people dislike Bobby Knight. I coached in the Bobby Knight era, at the start of that, the toughness and, motivation by almost humiliation sometimes. But he makes a very, very profound statement when he says that one of the key aspects of leadership is knowing how to be led yourself.
Yeah.
And he uses one word to describe it: loyalty. That even if you don't agree, you're loyal to that head coach and you're loyal to what they do. I try to impart that a little bit. A lot of the people I talk to don't know who Bobby Knight is anymore, but you have to know yourself how to be led. That's a difficult thing to do, especially when you may have, as a player, you may have disagreements with the head coach. But that loyalty, then you understand it. Oh, I could write a book on loyalty from staff members when I was at the OHSAA. I mean, it is so critical that those that are in, it doesn't matter what leadership position, whether it's sports or executive director or captain or whatever,
Right.
the loyalty of your staff and the loyalty of your players is so key to leadership. I really believe that.
I worked for a principal that he was at a retired Marine or was in the Marines, all this stuff, and boy, butchered the King's English and all these things. But he had discipline and he backed you, and so you overlook all those other things.
You do.
When you talk about a small world here, I mean, Jerry worked 20 minutes, but anyway, I edit this. So talk about a small world. I want to interject. You talked about people on your staff at the OHSAA. My neighbor, probably 200 meters down the road, okay, young couple. I knew the husband, but I didn't know the wife very well. We got to talking a year ago, and she said, "I saw where you did something with Jerry Snodgrass." I said, "How do you know Jerry Snodgrass?" "Oh, I worked for him at the OHSAA, Marky."
Yep.
Martin now. But she's just a teeny little woman, but that was so amazing. And I know she knows her stuff.
She does.
We name drop a little bit. So, but let's go to leadership then. We've talked about all those things. What's the future of high school sports in Ohio?
Good question. I'm not ready to give up on it. I think a lot of people say I believe the number is in 2027. I believe that travel sports are projected to be like a $70+ billion industry. Trust me, it's not going away. I mean, we're crazy if we think that's going away. Does it have an impact on high school sports? Yes. But like anything, I think when we're challenged on those things, I think it's time for us to step up. I'll give you a good example real quick.
Excuse me. You better define travel sports.
Club, travel. In basketball world, we call it AAU, but it really isn't. Non-school. But
sports.
Yeah. And I think, do they serve a purpose? Yes. But I don't know. And I'm not directing this there are good coaches in that. There are very good coaches in it. But there are also a lot of bad ones that don't have the training necessary that I think teachers have. And I think we need to get back to somehow, really putting sports back in the schools, meaning coaches and everybody. How do we do that? There are better minds than me that can help with that. But I think, is some of it pay? Yes. I personally, and this is me personally, I do not think the answer is opening the doors and allowing more and more and more year-round stuff in the schools. I think that's driving people out. I look at it this way. I was telling somebody this at Perrysburg the other day, that is football better today than it was 20 years ago? Oh my gosh, yes. Players are faster, stronger. It's good.
Yeah.
But at what expense? At what expense? How many kids are we losing? And we don't track that. We don't track that there are 62 kids on my grandson's 7th grade football team. Why aren't there 62? I know we're going to lose some. But what are those numbers when they get to be seniors, and why? We know they're less. Some sports are drastically losing people.
Right. Well, I agree with you. And I think one of the silly things is, we have college coaches and high school coaches say, we got to play football in this spring.
Yeah.
We got to be able to do this in the spring, 2 or 3 weeks of football. They do it in Texas and Florida. Well, the weather's a little bit different. And plus, it's been going on for so long. But here, I hear that. And then I hear these same college coaches saying, boy, you got to play more than one sport in high school. We like those guys that play 2 sports and really 3 sports. We got to play. I'm thinking, wait a minute. And it's just all about who's listening and what baloney I think it is. Well, Jerry Snodgrass, we talked 25 minutes on leadership. But anyway, leave us, Jerry, when you're teaching a college class at OU online, or what is really the most important thing that you emphasize about leadership? It's like when you're in the basketball huddle and what's the last thing, or in the locker room what's the last thing you want to tell the kids? Remember this. What do you want to remember about leadership?
I tell people all the time, I'm a country music fan. I love country music, and I love the lyrics that are in it and the ballads and the story it tells. And I just told this to a group the other day. There's a song, now quickly, I forgot who the singer is, but it's called Follow Your Arrow. And, if you told any group of kids to just right now take out a pencil or a pen and draw an arrow on a piece of paper, 95% of them will draw it going forward. And there's a song about follow your arrow, and it talks about more or less, if you do this, you're thought of this way. If you do this, you're thought of in another way, both sometimes bad. So, and then in the lyrics, it says, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So follow your arrow. So I try to encourage people all the time, know what you stand for. We know. We just wonder if other people think it. Don't worry about that. Follow your arrow. And I'm a big believer in that. Get your morals, get your compass set straight, get it pointing to the true north. And as a result of that, follow your arrow. And I think when people do that, they don't fear mistakes. They don't fear who they are, and they become better leaders as a result of that. I really believe that.
Well, that's great advice. I'm going to put you, super advice. I'm going to put you in with my quotes from Ben Franklin for doing that.
Yeah.
And silly. That's great advice, Coach. Great advice from you. I appreciate you being on my podcast. Hopefully, we talk about leadership, you more than I, but we both got a lot of points across. Coach, I really appreciate you being on, and we're going to do something later in a couple weeks. Okay?
John, I appreciate it so much. You're so well respected in this business, and I'm so darn proud to know you and so proud of what you've done for me growing up. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.